So whitetail deer hunting, obviously one of the most popular hunts in the country. It's a species that lots of people have access to. There's deer coast to coast, lots of areas. There's plenty of opportunity to get tags, and a lot of people get stuff wrong. And you guys get to see a lot of it. So what are some common mistakes that people make, not just here, but just whitetail hunting in general? Some advice that you could generally offer to people.
Just be patient.
Be
mean,
patient.
honestly,
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Don't, if you go and hunt and you don't see what you're looking for, just right away.
Age class too.
Don't just think, oh, I got to go somewhere different tomorrow. I mean, as long as the wind's right, and that's like where you've decided is the best opportunity to harvest what you're trying to get, stick with it.
Yeah.
As long as the wind's right.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. SIG is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com.
Well, we've got what kind of name is Tutak?
Jeez, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a cool name.
Yeah.
Cody, Tutak, and Shane Smith, 6-star outfitters. And are we in western Kansas? Are we in southwest Kansas?
West Central.
West Central?
Yeah. Depends what part of the state you talk to. Most of the state considers everything this way west.
Yeah.
Wichita and west.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're out here doing some deer hunting, going to do some coyote hunting, and we're in the middle of a dust storm right now. That's pretty impressive weather outside.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get here.
Yeah.
So the weather today has gotten as high as 73. It's supposed to get as low as 10, and right now it's blowing 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, it sounds about like a normal day.
Yeah. No one in Kansas is concerned yet.
At what point do people get concerned about the wind?
You see a deer blow across the road?
If they say 50, I mean,
Yeah.
30 to 40, that's common.
Now, your dad was telling me that tornadoes aren't as much of a thing as they used to be.
No, not as much. Those come in spurts. I mean,
Really?
Some years are just bad and some years aren't. And pretty much every one of them, almost, is just out across the open. I mean, they'll hit a farmhouse or two, but
Yeah.
very, very seldom do they hit towns, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, we get a weird sense of things because, most of the country doesn't deal with it. So you kind of think that everybody's like ready to jump in a storm cellar at any given moment. Is that not really the case?
No, everybody goes outside to look.
Yeah.
And vehicles to track it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, no, the tornadoes aren't that bad.
Yeah. What is bad? You guys get some cold winters?
Yeah.
Hot summers?
Some, yeah.
Summers are probably worse.
Yeah, definitely the summers are worse. We get a lot of hailstorms, honestly. It seems like those get more and more common, which is hard on the bird populations, the pheasants and quail and turkeys. And,
Never thought about that.
yeah. Your bird populations will fluctuate depending on where hailstorms were early in the year. And that's a common bad thing on the weather, but everything else, I mean, we get droughts, we get floods, we get
Snow.
plenty of
80 degrees next day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
legit. I mean, seen several in my life, like 80 to 90 degree temperature swings in 24 or 48 hours.
Both of you guys lived here your whole lives?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And how long have you been coyote hunting?
Oh, man. I've probably been 17, 18 years now.
Probably 8.
Yeah.
I was a late bloomer.
Tell me about coyote hunting competitions. How do they work?
So, I mean, generally, we'll have to drive anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours from home to go check in on Friday night. They give us all the rules and the layout of how the contest will be held, and then you leave that, and when the sun comes up the next day, 30 minutes before sunrise, you can start. And as you start killing coyotes, you take pictures of them as you're going, send them in. At some contests, you send those photos in, and then at some, you just you have to clamp a block of wood in their mouth,
Okay.
and just turn that in at the end. But it just varies. And so then on like a one-day tournament, then you got to be back for check-in at like 7 o'clock on Saturday. And whoever has the most or the most weight, whichever they're going off of, depending on the tournament, that's how they judge the winners. And then they have other side deals like biggest coyote, smallest coyote, stuff like that. And it's just fun to go out and compete and put your skills against others and see how you're doing.
Cody, you're telling me that the competitive aspect of it sort of reignited your love of coyote hunting.
Yeah. I'm a very competitive person. And it's just when you have to make a strategy coming into the day based on plan A, plan B, and plan C, depending on the weather, it's the planning part that makes it to when it comes actually all together and you're successful, it makes it satisfying, more rewarding. And that's what we have Shane for. He's the navigator and the planner. He's more coordinated. Everything's color coordinated, ready to go for the morning. And then last couple sets of the day is coordinated, and everything else in between there is a cluster.
Yeah, most tournaments are 3-man tournaments. Some are just 2, but most are 3. And we run 3 of us, me, Cody, and then another friend of ours. And yeah, I would say for the most part, I kind of put together the plan of how the day's going to go, where we're going to go, and all that. And Cody's really good at calling. You can kind of read the situation and the layout and the area, and generally seems to be playing the right stuff in the right spots. And our other buddy, he's just flat out good at shooting. Like, I mean, if we hear his gun go boom, we know that's a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all kind of have our own little part in the team.
I was curious about that, how those roles set up. Do you find that with other teams that are as successful as you guys, where they've got, somebody who's good at the logistics and planning, and somebody that's good at calling, and somebody that's good at shooting?
Yeah. I would say all teams kind of seem to be built pretty much like that. The guys that are really good at it all, you get your part, in the team, and you execute your job.
Yeah.
And then you leave, you trust that the others are doing their end, and it comes together well.
You can read body language and stuff, too, after
Yeah.
you've hunted together. I'll give an example. Our team name is Team Helen Keller
Okay.
because every one of us has a certain aspect about him I can't see, and our other partner can't hear.
Yeah.
It kind of fits hand in hand. If you lose one sense, you pick up another.
I think with our generation especially, like, we didn't grow up with hearing protection, but we grew up loving to shoot. So there's a lot of guys who are, in their 30s and 40s. If they're still shooting, they probably lost their hearing.
100%.
And it's really unfortunate. And I try hard now to make sure that I've either got a silencer on gun or hearing protection. I can't encourage people enough to not only do that for themselves, but to set that example for this younger generation so that they see that. And, it was almost dorky to me to see somebody wearing hearing protection when I was a kid. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's not fashionable.
Yeah.
But, gosh, that was the wrong thing for me to think.
Yeah. It's like wearing a bike helmet when you're a kid riding a bike.
Sure.
looks goofy, but
Yeah, you should do that.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it wasn't very long before they legalized suppressors here in Kansas.
Yeah. Suppressors were, that was a huge game changer. I mean, in predator hunting, it's just made it so much more
enjoyable almost.
Yeah, and efficient.
Yeah. Well, you guys, set me up for a tremendous deer hunt as well. And I was using a SIG silencer on that rifle this morning, and there were other deer in the area when I shot, but they didn't even move from the shot. And I see that with elk, I see it with deer. You're not blasting out this entire area and disrupting a huge swath of wildlife, So it's not just about preserving your own hearing, it's about causing less disturbance in the environment that you're hunting in.
Yeah,
I think that's hugely valuable too.
Yes, absolutely. And we got into the thermal hunting a little bit in the last year. They just legalized it here a couple years ago, and that makes that much better as well, because you're out there in the nighttime, and I mean,
houses,
cows. You don't want to be stirring it up, just loud booms. Sure. And so having that suppressor just helps in so many different ways, and it makes it where you can get kids involved. That's probably my favorite. Is it helps reduce some recoil, and it also, obviously kills the sound, and so it makes it where you can take a younger kid at, much younger age than they would normally start, and get them involved and get them excited and in it. And it's
super easy to get a silencer now too.
Yeah, very easy.
When I first got one, it was a process. I had to go to this place and, pay money, and then go to this place and schedule an appointment and come back and get fingerprinted and then take these documents here. And, it was really hard. Now you can go to a kiosk and, it takes less time than renewing your driver's license.
Yeah.
It's a piece of cake.
Yeah. You always do it the first of the year after season. That way, the summer, you're not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Get that phone call.
Yep.
Yeah, and with the e-forms, it's supposed to only take 90 days right now.
Oh,
yeah.
So
we had some people do that here locally, and one of the guys that put it in right when it started, he just got his last week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was like 220 days, but I think they're working on it,
Sure. I mean, it's a federal government, right? They're not
Not in a
super
hurry.
good at stuff.
Yeah.
But, I got mine in less time with the e-forms than it would have taken.
Yeah, that's what I
otherwise.
think, too. I think, most people I was hearing, it was like a year and a half there this last year, and
right.
he got it in 220, so that's half the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's showing game.
Yeah.
Your guys' coyotes have quite a bit of mange. They look like chupacabras.
Hairless ones.
There's a good batch of them in some areas, and it definitely fluctuates.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember when I first started, 15 years ago, the area that I was calling there was more mangy coyotes than there was good.
Really?
And now in that area, I don't see very many mangy ones. So it just
pockets.
It runs its course, and but it's ugly, man. When it happens,
you almost feel bad for them.
I feel so bad for them.
Yeah, I mean,
they're a naked coyote out there in the cold.
I went and pulled a ground blind after rifle season. It's probably 7 years ago, and when I opened that ground blind up, there was a dead coyote laying inside of it.
Really?
He had crawled up under there, and we'd had a bad ice storm that sometime in that week, and he was frozen solid. He was curled up inside there, though, but just dead. It scared the heck out of me when I opened that door and I seen that.
At least
I'm
he
like,
didn't smell, probably.
Yeah, no, it was frozen, But man,
I would have made a noise.
I always check for skunks, so I'm always peeking in there looking for black and white. And when my eyes caught that ugly looking thing, I jumped. I didn't know what I just saw.
Oh my gosh. Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. You can smell those things. You can upwind even about 10 feet. It swirls, and it's like, ugh.
Well, I don't want you guys giving away secrets, but tell me a little bit about how you like to run a stand here, because you've got to be really efficient with your time, but you've got to get the coyotes that are there.
Yeah. It differs. It's just terrain. I mean, it's not really a secret, but, midday when coyotes are kind of laid up, you want to be in closer, tighter to them, and you kind of situate your call and, trying to set people on the downwind side to be able to get those coyotes coming in back door. And it's just something that you learn as you go. I mean, it's all basically trial and error.
Yeah.
You can watch all the shows you want to until you actually experience it. Like, you have to make your own adjustments to every situation.
Yeah, you got to read the day as it's playing out. I mean, we plan ahead, watching forecasts and all that, but
you know in the first 3 sets if the coyotes are gonna move in that area.
Yep, and you'll know too. I mean, are they moving good in the big open country, or is it one of them days where you just got to get in the creek bottoms?
Yeah, go 40 miles south or something, and change a whole new area.
Yep, and until you find what's clicking on that day, it's just kind of a guessing game at the beginning.
Yeah.
You start out with like what's been working best in the last couple of weeks type of thing, but as soon as it's not working, I mean, you're grinding it out, trying to find like what's clicking today. How are we going to make this happen? And then until you find that, it's just trial and error.
Talk to me a little bit about gear. Do you bring a shotgun to a stand? Somebody shotgun?
Yep. Yeah. Usually have 2.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty. I would say we're pretty good at making almost any day work. Because the thing about tournaments is, I mean, you can't just pick a day of great calling weather. So on the day of the tournament, it is what it is. And so in Kansas, often it's windy.
Yeah.
So most guys wouldn't go coyote calling on those days. So we've adjusted quite well and made it where we've gotten good with the shotguns, because what we do is get in there tight with them. And it's not...
When you're hunting with multiple people and you've hunted together long enough, like we have strategies. If we have more than one coyote coming in with a hard charger, the lead guy, he lets that first coyote go, and that shotgunner is basically waiting until that rifleman shoots, because that's a free coyote. Unless he's leaving, you take the free coyote. You always do, because trying to get on a coyote running with a rifle and a scope is nearly impossible inside 50 yards.
Yeah.
And a shotgun is key to any sort of tournament or coyote calling.
Yeah.
Do you have any sights on your shotguns? Do you put red dots on them or anything like that?
No.
We've all grown up shooting waterfowl.
Mine doesn't even have a bead on it.
So we're just pretty. We are more natural shotgunners than we are riflemen. Like, honestly, and that's so
comes in handy.
It does, yeah. And it's when you're just grinding it out on shotgunning days. It's to an extent, it's not as fun.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to see them coyotes, coming from a distance. But, well, yeah, Cody's blind, so he's never seen one from a distance.
See those.
But, when you get one, you get them called in and you're close. Sometimes it's just, the excitement's only like 5 seconds. It's like, wow, okay. And it was worth it. That's what we're there for, is going after that adrenaline rush. But it's so much more fun when you can see them coming from a distance. And a lot of guys, that's what they get tied up in, is just wanting to see that. And it's like, well, do you want to win or do you want to see cool stuff?
You got to be able to read body language, though, when they're coming in that close. It took us, our third guy, it's another trial and error thing. Like, if coyote stops, panic, you got to be able to read that and know he's just checking up.
Yeah.
Scan everything and then.
Well, that's like thermal. I had a lot of people tell me, they're like, man, you really need a rangefinder on that thermal optic, because you can't tell distance. They're like, oh, it's terrible. And I was like, man, I don't know. That's another $1,000, and they're already expensive. So I didn't buy a rangefinder on my first one, and I don't think I need it. I agree, you can't tell distance very well, but the thing is I can read their language. So I know, like, most of them aren't leaving. Right. Just keep calling.
Yeah.
And by the time it's time to shoot, they're inside 100. So you're not trying to judge drop or anything.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of guys are doing, is they just don't read the coyotes very well. And if the coyote stops, then it's all over.
Yeah.
And
it's panic.
Yeah.
We've got Mr. Jackson. He's 3 years old. Shane's son here. Needed a bag of chips opened real quick. And your brother shot a deer last night. How old's your brother?
He's 5.
He's 5. So you can hunt at any age in Kansas?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. And he's been adamant wanting to go deer hunting. I talked him out of finally. He was wanting to do it with a crossbow for a while, and I finally said, let's wait until gun season, and he was still wanting to go. It all came together for him.
Drive that young of age.
Yes. And once again, the suppressor, man. I mean,
Yeah.
he just loves shooting.
You know, my best friend's daughter has only shot suppressed rifles. And he's a big time waterfowler. And he would love it if she would go out and hunt ducks with him.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't like shotguns because they're loud.
It's almost like training the lab. You know, you don't want to be gun shy. You just got to work them into it.
So I've told people that the only bad thing about a suppressor is that they'll kind of weaken you and make you only want to shoot suppressed guns after that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was halfway joking with that, but now seeing that with her, it's like, oh, wow, that actually happened.
Yep.
You know, she saw the good life and got used to that, and now we can't get her to shoot a shotgun.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
The suppressors they make for shotguns, I mean, if they can make 12 inches, what are those things that hang over?
Oh, they're big and they're oblong.
Yeah.
And they're pretty goofy.
Yeah. I've never even heard one shot. I mean, does that make a huge difference like a rifle?
I haven't actually shot one. I've
either.
seen them, but
I would think so. I mean, for the most part, it's
people would buy
subsonic.
them. Yeah.
I put a red dot on my shotgun this year and was using that for waterfowl, and it improved my accuracy substantially.
Really?
I had a red dot on when I was shooting trap in the Marine Corps, and I did really well with that, and I took it off for some reason, and I recently went back to it, and I think I'm going to keep it on there for coyotes, and I'll probably set one shotgun up with a red dot for day, and then we've got a thermal that's a reflex sight, so it's just it's like a TV screen. You can fire the thing from your hip.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on another shotgun for nighttime calling. But the thermal game is so good. I mean, those coyotes they're so cocky at night.
Yeah, they drop
especially
all their
in a
guard.
state that's never been able to hunt coyotes at night. I mean, it's like cheating.
So you weren't able to hunt at night at all, like with spotlights or anything?
3 years ago.
Farmers could if there are livestock issues, but they're the only ones that can hunt or shoot them.
Gotcha. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's
really
different. It's a
interesting.
whole different. You know, I started with a light when they first legalized it, and like it's so many what ifs in the thermal game with that. I mean, you can see background.
Yeah.
You know, you can see the houses out here. You can see the livestock, everything else, because that's the biggest part. That's why it always stopped me from getting really into it at first. It was because of that. You shoot something bad happen. I mean, the whole area would hear about it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want that reputation. You know.
Sure. I know turkeys are a really important wildlife species for Kansas. I've seen 8 times more coyotes this trip than I've seen turkeys.
About the last 25 years in Kansas is that declining.
Is it fair to say that the coyotes are having a negative impact on the turkey
I don't
population?
think so.
Nah, I think we took a hard hit from
Fur prices.
that, and I think the big rain we had. It rained so much
It's over 20 years though. I mean, it's just
5 years ago. I was getting phone calls still 5 years ago of just every year farmers were calling saying, "Hey, either you get out here and start shooting them, or I'm going to start giving permission to people because
The turkeys?
because they plant their cornfield or their bean field, and there'd be 100 turkeys following the tractor around just picking the seed." And so in the last 5 years, I haven't had a single farmer even talk about a turkey.
You don't see them when they're
Like they just drastically fell, and you don't see jakes like you used to. And this year we saw a ton of them. But it's kind of funny because it didn't rain this year, and it's like our areas along creeks and rivers are just you haven't seen a jake in years.
Wow.
And
there's
so
certain areas that have higher populations still for some reason.
yeah, we went from 300 turkeys in one area, like 5 mile stretch, to we're probably below 30.
And you don't think predation was a part of that?
It is.
Well, you got raccoons.
Because,
No one kills them anymore.
yeah, so you got it. The way I look at it is
Pesticides.
they start a nest, and that creek comes out of its banks and floods it out. They're all dead, all of them. And they say they'll re-nest, which is good. And if that creek, it's one thing if you get like a flooding rain one year, but for 4 years it flooded out creeks like 3-4 times a year.
Gotcha.
And so it was like they just couldn't catch a break.
Yep.
And so, but then our areas where we have sand, like the sand hills,
Yep.
those turkeys they're down, but they're still plentiful to hunt. Whereas like up on that creek I'm talking, we don't even hunt it. Like you can't. If you do, it'd be very unsportsmanlike.
Gotcha.
So, but down in that sand, those big rains, for one, it's not a creek or a river. And then two, even if you do have a 4-inch rain, it's not pooling up like it would on dirt.
Can handle
the
it.
sand absorbs it, and so that nest doesn't get soaked.
Yep.
And because those eggs only churn temperature for a little while, and they're all dead.
Gotcha.
And so you have that going on, which is completely out of our control. But then you have, let's say there's 10 nests, and if these rains kill 8 nests, that's completely out of our control. But there's still 2 out there that have made it. Well, then you got an army of coons, because nobody's trapping, nobody's doing anything on the fur bearers, and they are just booming.
Do you guys call coons?
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
We have to. A lot of money a year they eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to call
25 coons in one picture. You got to do something.
Yeah, we trap a lot of them. Jackson likes to go shoot coons.
Mm-hmm.
Attaboy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you have armadillos now.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, those are fun, though. They're harmless.
There are quite a bit of them
Kids
around.
toys.
I've been seeing quite a bit of them here in the last month.
We saw one on the way back this morning.
We did too, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you didn't have those growing up?
No. If you saw one, it made the front page of the newspaper.
It was...
Like, it slowly migrated up north. You see one dead on the highway, and it's like, what's that doing here? And then all of a sudden, they're everywhere.
Huh.
I think I killed 8 out of my in-laws' front yard last year.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's, yeah.
So with these changes in some species, becoming less, some species becoming more, how are the deer doing?
I'd say the deer's staying steady.
Yeah.
I don't see an uptick or a downtick, really.
You guys have some tremendous bucks.
Thank you. It takes time and a lot of effort, but, we're blessed to be in the state we're in.
What does that effort look like? I mean, we talk about that, and I think people are starting to understand that guides and outfitters work year-round. You only make money for part of the year, but you work all year.
Yeah.
So what are you doing in the off-season? What's that look like for you?
The off-season, which is the busy season, you're mowing, you're fixing everything that's broken from the season.
Yep.
You're trimming out trees for bow stands, planting food plots, keep the feeders full, work on the cameras.
Mow paths.
Yeah, mow a lot of trails. And it's just non-stop, because if you don't get all that done, I mean, once season gets here, you can't recreate that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like farming. I mean, you got to plant the seed in order to have harvest. And it's the same thing with hunting. If you don't
maintain it too,
if you don't start early, when it's time to hunt, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
You're going to see it, yeah.
So, and your clients will see that. They'll know, nobody's been doing anything type of a thing. So you got to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's a ton of work.
And a lot of money.
It is. It's just, honestly, it's just like farming. It's, you work all year and you only have 2 harvests.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, we have deer and we have turkey. That's
Yeah.
what we focus on. And you get paid twice a year.
Yeah.
And then you're at the mercy of Mother Nature, just like a farmer.
Yeah.
You gotta take care of, just like they take care of the soil, you gotta take care of your herd. And you gotta do it right if you want to keep going.
Continuously kill big deer. You got to maintain what you're doing and improve when you can and adapt.
Very much.
One of the things that impressed me is from the place that I was hunting, I saw a good representation of every age class.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to achieve.
Yeah.
Yep. It can be.
We don't have, we're lucky we don't have winter kill.
Yeah.
So we don't have the structure of the Mother Nature wiping out a year of deer, as long as we continue to avoid the diseases. But once again, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
And CWD's knocking, right?
Yeah.
It has. I think
it's been around for
a while,
20 years or something.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
It wiped our mule deer out around here.
It just doesn't take grasp. And so I don't know why or understand it, but we continue to do what we can to keep our herds healthy. You also gotta harvest the does. You you got to recognize your areas that are overpopulated. And
what kind of buck to doe ratio are you shooting for?
Depends on the area, probably.
Like what it can sustain, because we deal with everything from. I mean, we're out here in the western part of the state, where you'll see
deer on 3-4 different cameras within 4 miles.
Yeah,
you know.
And I mean, you're dealing with like 5 deer in an area.
Yeah.
Whereas you go back east 100 miles, and you can be dealing with 250 deer in that same size area, and they're both just as good. I mean, they both have quality deer. It's just
one's more fun to sit and watch.
It is, yeah. It's more entertaining. Yeah. So across the board, I mean, you're dealing with everything with the way we operate, like such a big area,
right?
And that's what we have to recognize is, like, you know, some of these areas have a lot of deer, and why?
Yeah, and for clients, like you hear quality, but you're not gonna see the numbers.
Yeah,
like 5 deer showing up at this camera. So if you see a deer, you have a 20% chance that it's gonna be the deer you're gonna be after. You know.
Yeah.
And it's terrain. You got your creeks out here that, you know, some of those deer, when there's water out here, we get rains, it's hard for them to cross.
Mm-hmm.
So you get days, if the deer showing up on camera, they found a place to cross, you're hunting that deer. Because you may get a day or two, and then they're back on the other side of the creek. Mm-hmm. And they're gone for a while.
Right.
So, you know, trying to get the mindset of clients saying, like, this is what we're going into. And that way they're not, you know, coming into it not knowing anything. And like, I only saw 2 deer. Mm-hmm. Like, well, you saw, you know, 40% of the deer that are on that camera. And it's like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You got to have the mindset going into the hunt, knowing that this is what it's going to be like.
Mm-hmm. I get the sense that most of your clientele understands age class and that they need to be targeting older deer. Is that the culture within the locals in Kansas as well?
Depends on what area.
Yeah, it varies.
I think out east you have more people that are thoughtful about that because they're built up around the deer populations in the area.
I think deer hunting in general across the whole country's become more, people are letting more deer walk type of a thing, which is good and bad. I mean, same part.
That thick-horned 8-point, that was hard for me to
that was impressive. You have some strong willpower there.
You know what I had, honestly, is friends. Because I was able to take a picture of him through my scope and send it to you and send it to my friends who are whitetail dudes that I really respect. Mm-hmm. And because I don't have a ton of experience with whitetail. I've shot plenty of them in plenty of places, but it's not my area of expertise by any means. So I'd lean on experts and say, hey, like, my heart's jumping out of my chest right now. Obviously, I'm emotional and in no place to be making decisions on my own. I need some help. And everybody, you know, basically said, hey, you're in a great spot. Yeah. Why don't you wait?
Yeah. And when you sent it to me, I mean, I think my response was, I mean, it's a nice deer. He's a beautiful deer. Very heavy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I pretty well left it to you because,
of course,
it's your it's your hunt, your tag, man.
And as an outfitter, you're in a precarious place because if you say, hey, I know there's a better deer around. I know that if you stick to the plan and you ride it out, that, you know, the odds are in your favor that you're going to get this better deer. But if you say, hey, why don't you let that one walk, and then something happens, and then I end up eating my tag when I would have been happy with that deer,
right?
99 out of 100 clients blames you for that.
Yep.
So you can't take that on.
Exactly.
It's an unacceptable risk. So that's just part of dealing with clients that is really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
You can't have a hard yes or no in that situation.
No. I think I've only had one situation ever where a guy sent me a photo and my response was yes. He lived in a high fence, and so he looks at like giant deer every day. He couldn't judge deer.
He wasn't even going to hunt that trip.
And
he's like, I'll go sit a morning.
Yeah, and he could not judge deer to save his life. Free range deer.
Right.
That deer never showed up over there either.
No, it came out of nowhere, and I was just like,
yep, shoot.
Yeah, shoot. And then after he shot it, he's like, man, that was a great call. I can't believe, and it was so funny. But yeah.
So whitetail deer hunting, obviously one of the most popular hunts in the country. Mm-hmm. It's a species that lots of people have access to. There's deer coast to coast, lots of areas. There's plenty of opportunity to get tags, and a lot of people get stuff wrong. and you guys get to see a lot of it. So what are some common mistakes that people make, not just here, but just whitetail hunting in general? Some advice that you could generally offer to people.
Just be patient.
Be
I
patient.
mean, honestly,
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Don't if you go and hunt and you don't see what you're looking for, just
Depends
right
what
away.
age class too.
Don't just think, oh, I got to go somewhere different tomorrow. I mean, as long as the wind's right, and that's like where you've decided is the best opportunity to harvest what you're trying to get, stick with it.
Yeah.
As long as the wind's right, because a lot of guys, they'll just go, and I get it 100%. You go twice, you go 2 whole days. If you go like one morning, come out, and you go that evening, and then you do it again the next day. So you go make 4 sits there in a row, and you still don't see what you're wanting to see. You think you're doing something wrong.
It's mentally really hard on you.
Yes, and you got to trust it.
You're feeling the clock tick really hard. It's like getting loud in your ear, like, oh, I've only got 2 days left.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so that'd be my advice is whatever you started with that you felt was just the best idea, stick with it unless during those sits you've learned something new.
Okay.
If you learn something new, like some new knowledge or information on what you're hunting, use that to your advantage. But if you're still, like, technically if you look at it and you're like, everything I knew going into this is still the best information, stick with it.
Yeah.
Don't go trying to do something different just to try and make yourself feel better. And that's the hardest thing. And that's one thing we understand. And it's almost like you almost have to be good at like coaching people into like, hey, you've got it, man. Like, stick with it. Because we understand. It's like, man, I don't blame you one bit for wanting to move type of a thing. Like, you've only seen 3 deer each time type. And it's like, but when you know, like, what we know of why we're there, it's like most of the time when somebody's ready to move, I have a pretty good sit down with them and I say, look, that's fine. I understand if you want to move. We have other spots. We have other deer. I'm just going to let you know somebody else in camp's going to go there. Like,
we need to hunt that deer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our operation still needs somebody in that seat. And usually when I say that, they're like, well, I'll sit there another day.
Yeah.
And because it's, like I say, at the end of the day, we have to continue to stick with our guns on where we need to be.
Yeah. There are apathetic outfitters out there, but if you're with any kind of a decent or reputable outfitter, they are more invested in your success than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely.
So you've got to, even though it's hard to sit in a place for 2 or 3 days or 10 days and not see what you're wanting to, but if you've got more days on the hunt and the outfitter's saying we need to stay here, then you need to trust them.
Yeah.
It's always the guys that are most relaxed in camp that seem to do the best. Like,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in their face. Like, I mean, you get guys that are just real anxious and like, oh man, I gotta, I play at camera roulette because you're watching cameras, you want to jump here, and you're just chasing ghosts.
Yep.
You put the time in, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, I'll do it. Those are always seem the guys that shoot the deer they're after.
Yeah.
Always. It's weird. It's like some sort of force or something. Like, okay, you're cool.
It really is. I mean, it seems like those deer have that sixth sense. Like, they feel. You have those guys that are out there, they're just like, yeah, if whatever I see tonight, I'm thankful for it. Like, it was a good evening type of a guy. And you got this other guy that comes in and he's like,
let's have bad experience with somebody else or something.
He's like, all I saw was 2 deer. He's like, where do you think we should go tomorrow? Yeah. And it's like, well, what 2 deer did you see? Yeah. What did they do?
Where'd they come from?
And it's like, well, it was a little 8-point chasing a doe. And it's like, jackpot.
Mm-hmm. That doe's hot.
Yeah, we need to stay there, and whereas the guy who's more laid back, he would have come back and he'd have been like, I saw some pretty cool activity. And I saw a buck chasing a doe, and that's about it. But it's a good evening.
Yeah,
that guy, he'll go right back there happily, and that's what you need is to stick with it. And them other guys are just like, that's all I saw was just 2 deer.
Yeah.
Even on our part, cameras only tell you a
30-foot story.
Yeah, 30-foot story.
And not even all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You see flashes, that's all you get half the time.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't tell you how many times, like, I'll have a a client in a stand and an elk will come in and water or something like that and leave, and they'll be like, well, you've got a camera up, you'll be able to see that bull. Like, not necessarily.
No.
Like, and he could walk in front of the camera, and sometimes they just don't trigger.
Yeah.
Especially during the rut. I mean, those animals don't care
You
for...
get a butt a lot.
Yeah, like they don't even care about water or food.
Right.
Like whatever's in front of your camera, they don't care about that.
Yeah.
So
Our bucks are checking corn piles.
Yeah.
They're getting downwind of them, 60
Sure.
yards, and
just
that's what
cruising
they're
by.
doing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I've never rifle hunted out of a ground blind before. I was pretty grateful to have a short gun in there.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Even with the Canon 16-inch barrel, I was still able to sit back with my gun on a tripod and not have anything extruding through the window.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got perfect concealment back there and still have all the rifle that I need. I think that cross rifle is an ideal candidate for that type of hunting.
Definitely.
We've talked about caliber a little bit, and I like what you said, which is, if I could paraphrase, that people should bring the largest gun that they can shoot well.
Yep, the biggest gun you have that you can shoot accurately.
Yep.
And I don't care if it's a 243.
75 H&H.
Yeah, and if it's a 338, like I don't care.
470.
But because I mean, we're trying to shoot deer that we've been watching for 6 years.
Right.
When it comes time to make it happen and make it count, we want to retrieve this animal.
Yep.
So, number one, the thing that kills them the best is shot placement. But on the other side, we're all human, and if you have any air, if you have a little more energy to hit with, it's going to help you. But if you have too much gun, just because you want to be the guy in camp with a big old gun, you're probably going to be the guy in camp that misses because you're flinching or you're yanking the trigger. And that's so that's how I've always worded it is, just bring the biggest gun you can shoot accurately.
Yeah.
And
what does accurately mean to you for the context of what you're asking of your hunters?
I mean, basically stack, 3 shots in the size of like a golf
Most of our
ball.
corn's under 200 yards.
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you 200 yards and then to me, if you can shoot accurately, that more than likely you're not going to have a shot farther than that.
Yeah, not very often does anybody need to calibrate drop.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, every year on the average, we're right around averaging like 100 to 130 yards on our distance, and our goal is 100 every year. It's where we want to be
Chip
because
shots.
no matter who you are, you get a world-class animal in front of you, you might be shaking.
Basketball's
So-
bigger at 100 than it is 300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I could look at my watch and go back and figure out what my heart rate was.
I don't need one of those. I have to go to the doctor.
123 is the high point today, and I guarantee you that was at about 7:19 a.m.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Mine's that every day. All day.
No, but that's the real deal. Is you start feeling all those hormones running through your system, and it changes your abilities. It's not like shooting off of a bench back home.
Yeah.
You got to learn live situations. You can't teach that.
Yeah, and I see people try to imitate that type of stress, the buck fever stress with fatigue or exercise. Still wildly different.
Oh,
and
100%.
it's challenging to shoot if you're out of breath. It's challenging to shoot if you're tired, but it's different. It does a different thing to you than that stress of the combination of desire for gain and fear of loss.
And wanting to know if you hit the animal.
Yeah.
I've had guys, and I say that with archery, we're not even looking at their peep sight.
Right.
They don't even realize it.
Yeah, and dudes shoot rifles, and they, pull the trigger, and their head's coming out of the scope while the bullet's still trying to get down the barrel. It's like,
Were you looking at the scope and you pulled the trigger? I think so.
yeah. And, I'm extremely happy with the shot that I put on that buck today. That's where I was aiming. That's where the bullet ended up. But even then, you guys asked me, where did you hit him? Like, I felt like it was good, but I couldn't sign my name on a dotted line because I'm a terrible first-person witness. I don't know.
Things happen quickly.
Yeah, and I just don't know any shooters who can accurately say what happens when they're the one on the trigger, and I'm very much included in that myself.
Yeah.
He had a good idea. He had to give him a checklist. We send him, instead of asking them, they fill it out in the stand so we don't feel obligated.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a little questionnaire. Like it's gonna have like a picture, and they're gonna draw a circle on where they think they hit it, which way it was facing,
tail up, tail down.
I always tell guys like the bow hunters, I always say the most important information you can give me
is everything.
Is the last place you seen it,
yeah,
and what it was doing.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, you can tell me where you shot it all you want. That's fine. I will listen.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I have went and looked for a lot of deer that were shot in the 12 ring. And when we find it, I'm like, man, I didn't realize the 12 ring was in the guts.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's happened to all types of hunters.
And that's not their fault. It's just the image that's in their mind is of perfection.
And that's what I've learned. It's happened with all types of hunters, where it's like guys who are complete experts and guys who are very new, and all of them do it. And so I get to the point where I'm like, it's something that just happens in that moment.
Yeah.
Got the toilet paper out.
It's going big on the paperwork.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you get expert hunters. I mean, not hunters, but guys, like Olympic competitions. It's a whole different ballgame accuracy-wise when you're shooting at a live animal than it is at a piece of paper.
Sure. And I've seen very competent and skilled competition shooters do really poorly on animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from them by bringing that up, only saying that they're different things.
Yeah.
And competency in one field of shooting doesn't necessarily translate. It can, but your mental game has to be there. And we know that this is 90% mental, but we don't necessarily focus 90% of our practice on that mental aspect.
You have to have a mental checklist almost that you go through before the shot's made.
Yeah.
Before it's, in preparation.
That's why I shoot a 2-stage trigger.
Yeah.
That single thing increases my accuracy by 50% because it alleviates at least 50% of my anxiety.
Oh, 100%, yes.
Because I take the gun off safe, my reticle moves to where it needs to, I focus on my breathing, and then I take up the slack on the first stage of that trigger, and in doing so, my mind just calms down so much, and I can relax into breaking the rest of the shot with
knowing that bullet's going to go off.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
I love that.
Yes. I won't shoot a single stage. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I put them in ARs. A lot of people like single stage for ARs. I like 2-stage for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even with the guys that have the triggers that you can breathe on, they blow, go off. It's like, still, if it's 2-stage, you can still feel that instead of accidentally bumping. If you have gloves, if you're cold, it's
very safe.
Game changer.
Yeah. Ultimate deer caliber. Your opinions.
Anything but a 6.5. Sorry.
I would say a very common Kansas rifle is a 243.
Yeah. Tough to beat.
Yes, but I know a lot of guys that shoot them with a 300.
Yeah. Depends on the age group too.
300 is a very common caliber that people bring.
Our older guys bring 270s. That type of stuff. I've noticed.
I would say the most people bring the 300 Win Mag, but locals, I would say a lot shoot 243, 270.
Yeah, those are all excellent options. I love a 300 Win Mag. I love a 243. I think 25-06 is a tremendous deer round.
I know a few people with it. Yeah.
Yep. They're less popular than they were. There's this whole class of rifles that were coming on super strong before laser rangefinders.
Mm-hmm.
And people wanted flat shooting guns, and there's still a need for them, but less so now that we have rangefinders that can tell us how far stuff is, how much your bullet's going to drop. And you're talking about the last place that a deer is being really important. I think a rangefinder is an important tool for that people aren't using.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like today, the last place that I saw that buck, he only went 40 yards from where I shot him.
Mm-hmm.
But the last place I saw him was going over a ridge. I thought that it was a different ridge, and had I had the foresight to range it, then I could have went over there and known exactly which ridge it was on. I could have plotted it on Onyx, used base map, whatever. I would like to see guys use that tool a little bit more.
Anything's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, any information that you have on an animal that you've hit will help you no matter what, even the smallest details. And it's helped us tremendously.
Tell me about the tail thing. I'd never heard about that until today.
I don't think anybody had. It just seems like a deer that's mortally wounded. That I've noticed over the years is it has that adrenaline rush right away and less pain because it doesn't really know what's happened, I guess. And it seems like the better shots, heart, lungs, the deer run off with their tail up.
Okay.
Is what I've always noticed. And then, hit anything farther back, those deer aren't moving quite as fast. And they're usually hunched over after, 40, 50 yards with their tail tucked.
Interesting.
I mean, you might see that if, you shoot the deer and 10 ring him, and when he's getting ready to go over, you'll see it. I mean, he'll do something like that.
Yeah.
But when he runs, it's like, an alert. He's getting out of there like normal.
So if you know that it's hit and the tail's up, then that's a good sign.
Oh, to me it is, yeah. I feel really confident about something like that.
Yeah. You agree with that, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, it varies on each situation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would agree.
I know that our whitetail, I don't know if your whitetail do this, but our whitetail will flick their tail before they move.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
So if they're standing still and their tail hasn't moved, you've got another second.
Mm-hmm.
If their tail swishes a couple times, they might continue standing there, but chances are they're about to.
For me, it's a flag too.
Yeah.
If you watch it enough, it's for other deer. Like it's almost like a calming signal. Like I come in here, it's safe. You'll see does or something hang back, and you'll see that. Like, all right, come on.
Right. Because that's why their tail is what it is. It's a communication device. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you watch a lot of it, and it's like you catch up. You see things that people usually don't notice when you watch enough deer.
Sure.
And as long as you have to use that to your advantage, because I mean, once you realize that reading body language like that, like you said, it could help you. You got that extra couple seconds. You're not rushing anything.
Yeah.
Deer's comfortable, and when deer sees that they're comfortable in the corn, the ones even downwind sometimes will come in because they're like, "There's already a deer there."
Yeah.
I
I never even thought to look at the tail thing. It's something that I'll, of course, pay attention to now. But I love learning stuff like that so much. If that was the only thing that I learned from coming to Kansas to hunt with you guys, it would be enough to make the trip worthwhile. And,
I talk enough, so you learn a lot. Just take what you want.
Valid point.
I gotta stay awake.
Well, I sure appreciate you guys. If people want to get on the list and come hunt with you, how do they do it?
They can go to our website, sixstaroutfitters.com, and reach out. There's definitely a waiting list.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people wanting to hunt, but we'll stick to our numbers and just keep taking good quality hunts.
You've got good quality deer.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but it's what it's about.
Well, thank you for your hospitality and for everything you've taught me, and looking forward to getting out there and getting after the coyotes.
It's going to be fun.
Yes,
It looks
sir.
like tomorrow's going to be a good day.
Going to be a good day.
Maiden voyage this year.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, gentlemen.
Yep.
What I remember is getting up in the dark, shuffling on out to the pickup and climbing in, heading out, headlights going out over the fields and the roads and getting back into the mountains and the timber, and knowing that there was a destination out there that I was going to be sharing with my dad. And at some point, either during the drive or once we got out to some ridge that we were going to be watching when the sun came up, you'd hear that little squeak of the lid coming off of the thermos. And then you unscrew that top part a little bit, pour that coffee or hot chocolate into a cup, and you can just see the little tiny vapors of steam coming off of it, curling up into the morning, and holding on to that thing like it was a prayer, and blowing some of the heat off of it and taking that first hot drink in the morning, and then the same thing that evening, because if there was anything left, it was still going to be hot. Like, those are core memories. Those are part of growing up and part of being an adult, and then sharing that. Now, I'm getting to share that with my nephew and giving him those experiences. And it's an accessory to the experience. But part of what I remember about hunting and working with my family as a little kid was that there was this green, beat to hell, still going strong Stanley thermos. And now there's a complete line of Stanley products out there. And if you go to stanley1913.com, you can look into those and see if there's something out there that you need or that you want or that you would like to give to somebody else. And if you use the discount code 6RANCH, the number 6 and the word ranch, and you can get 25% off of just about anything in their store. I encourage you to do it. They're great supporters of this show. They're great supporters of this audience. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all of your support and your attention. We're not stopping. We're going strong. And I'm glad to pass along this discount to you guys. And I hope that you find something that can help develop that core memory for you and the people that you love. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6Ranch Podcast or me at 6Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.